The morning sun comes up, you slowly stretch out of bed, and you make your way to the kitchen. The house is quiet, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee fills the air. You sit down at the table with your usual breakfast, perhaps a bowl of cereal, a couple of slices of toast with jam, or maybe some eggs with a side of bacon. It is a comforting, lifelong routine. It feels safe, it feels normal, but statistically and physiologically, the hours between 6 o'clock in the morning and noon are the most dangerous and deadly hours of the day for the human cardiovascular system. More heart attacks, more sudden cardiac arrests, and more ischemic strokes occur during these specific morning hours than at any other time in a 24-hour cycle. The way your autonomic nervous system wakes up, the sudden shift in your blood pressure, and the thickness of your blood after a long night of sleep create a perfect storm of vulnerability. And into that incredibly fragile environment, you introduce your breakfast. Right now, the specific foods and beverages you are consuming within the first 2 hours of waking up could be acting as the final trigger, actively destroying the delicate lining of your blood vessels, forcing your aging heart to pump against massive resistance and setting off a chain reaction of inflammation that could land you in the emergency room before lunch. Today, we are going to tear apart the traditional senior breakfast. We are going to look deep into the microscopic physics of your arteries to understand exactly how your morning routine is silently attacking your cardiovascular health. You will discover why the health advice you received in the 1980s about a balanced breakfast is now considered incredibly dangerous for adults over the age of 60. Stick with me until the very end of this video, because I am going to reveal the exact morning protocol that cardiologists use to protect their own hearts, and I will give you a 5-step checklist to completely transform your morning routine safely. Before we dive into the intense clinical science of cardiovascular nutrition, I must pause and share a critical reminder about how we operate on this channel. Everything we discuss today is grounded entirely in peer-reviewed medical research, published clinical guidelines, and vast epidemiological data from the world's leading cardiology and dietary institutions. However, I am an artificial intelligence health educator. I am not your personal doctor, and I do not know the unique intricacies of your medical history, your kidney function, or your current prescription list. The information in this video is strictly for educational purposes. It is designed to empower you with the correct clinical terminology and a deep scientific understanding, so you can have much more proactive, informed, and detailed conversations with your own healthcare team. You must never, under any circumstances, drastically alter your diet, start or stop any medications, or ignore your doctor's nutritional advice without having a direct, in-person consultation with your licensed physician first. Nutrition is highly individualized, and what is perfectly safe for one senior might be dangerous for another, depending on their diabetes status or heart failure diagnosis. If you ever experience sudden, severe chest pain, shortness of breath, a rapid and chaotic heartbeat, or extreme dizziness after eating or drinking your morning coffee, do not wait to see if it passes. Call 911 or your local emergency number immediately, as these are signs of an active cardiac event that requires immediate emergency intervention. Let us begin with the absolute most common and destructive breakfast habit, which clinical researchers refer to as postprandial glycemic endothelial shock. In plain language, this means the massive, sudden spike in blood sugar that occurs when you eat refined carbohydrates first thing in the morning, and the physical damage that sugar inflicts on your arteries. For decades, seniors were told to avoid dietary fat at all costs to protect their hearts. This misguided advice led to an entire generation adopting breakfast composed entirely of carbohydrates. A bowl of oatmeal with brown sugar, cornflakes, bran muffins, bagels, or simple white toast with a thick layer of fruit preserves. While these foods may be virtually fat-free, they are immediately converted into pure glucose the moment they hit your digestive tract. When you wake up, your body is in a fasted, highly sensitive state. When you dump a massive load of simple carbohydrates into an empty stomach, your blood sugar skyrockets within 20 minutes. Your pancreas panics and dumps a massive wave of insulin into your bloodstream to try and force that toxic sugar out of the blood and into your cells. But as we age, our cells naturally become resistant to insulin. The sugar stays trapped in the bloodstream, circulating at dangerously high levels. According to landmark research published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, these massive morning spikes in blood sugar cause immediate, profound damage to the endothelium. The endothelium is the delicate, one-cell-thick inner lining of your blood vessels. It is responsible for producing nitric oxide, the miracle molecule that keeps your arteries relaxed and wide open. When high levels of glucose wash over the endothelium, it triggers a process called glycation. The sugar molecules physically attach to the proteins in the vessel walls, creating advanced glycation end products, appropriately known as AGEs. These sugar structures act like microscopic shards of glass, scratching, irritating, and stiffening the inner lining of your arteries. He wore a Holter monitor for his cardiologist, which recorded his heart's electrical rhythm for 24 hours. The data clearly showed that every morning at exactly 6:15, 15 minutes after his second cup of coffee, his heart was slipping into short, dangerous runs of supraventricular tachycardia. Your blood vessels temporarily lose their ability to expand. At the exact time of day when your heart needs your arteries to be flexible to accommodate the morning surge in blood pressure, a sugary breakfast literally turns your arteries into stiff, unyielding lead pipes. Think about a 74-year-old retired librarian. She thought she was doing everything perfectly. Every morning, she had a large bowl of plain instant oatmeal, but she added a handful of raisins and a large swirl of honey to make it palatable, along with a glass of orange juice. By 8 in the morning, she would feel a sudden rush of energy, but by 10 o'clock, she would feel dizzy, exhausted, and notice her heart fluttering. She assumed it was just morning fatigue, but her cardiologist had her wear a continuous glucose monitor. Her healthy breakfast was causing her blood sugar to spike over 200 every single morning. This massive spike was causing severe endothelial dysfunction, forcing her heart to pump furiously against stiffened arteries, leading to those fluttering arrhythmias. Once her doctor instructed her to change her breakfast to scrambled eggs and a slice of avocado, eliminating the pure carbohydrate load, her blood sugar stabilized, her energy remained constant, and the heart palpitations completely vanished. The common mistake seniors make is believing that because a cereal box says heart healthy or whole grain, it will not spike their blood sugar. The physiological reality is that any meal composed purely of carbohydrates without protein or healthy fats will cause a glycemic shock to an aging vascular system. The vital takeaway here is that you must anchor your breakfast with high-quality protein. Whether it is eggs, plain Greek yogurt, or a protein shake, consuming protein first blunts the absorption of glucose, protecting your fragile endothelium from the morning sugar spike. Always discuss your fasting glucose numbers and your breakfast choices with your primary care physician. Moving on to the second major morning risk, we need to examine acute dietary hypernatremia and the high-pressure hose effect. This refers to the profound cardiovascular danger of consuming high-sodium processed meats as a regular breakfast staple. We are talking about bacon, sausage links, sausage patties, ham slices, and smoked fish. These foods are deeply ingrained in traditional breakfast culture, but they are uniquely destructive to a senior heart that is already vulnerable during the morning hours. The danger here is not the dietary fat or the cholesterol, which take years to accumulate. The immediate acute danger is the massive, sudden influx of concentrated sodium. To understand why this is so dangerous, we have to look at the physics of osmosis and your kidney function. Your kidneys are responsible for filtering your blood and maintaining the perfect balance of water and salt in your circulatory system. Overnight, your kidneys slow down their filtration rate so you do not have to wake up every hour to use the bathroom. When you wake up, your kidneys are essentially just coming back online. If you sit down and eat 4 slices of bacon and 2 sausage links, you are dropping hundreds, sometimes over 1,000 milligrams of sodium directly into your stomach in a matter of minutes. As that massive dose of sodium is absorbed into your bloodstream, it creates a powerful osmotic gradient. Salt acts like a chemical sponge. It aggressively pulls water out of your surrounding tissues and out of your cells, drawing all of that fluid directly into your blood vessels to dilute the sudden concentration of sodium. Research published by the American Heart Association in the journal Circulation details this exact process, known as acute plasma volume expansion. Within 45 minutes of eating a high-sodium breakfast, the total physical volume of fluid inside your cardiovascular system dramatically increases. Imagine taking a standard garden hose that has water flowing through it at a normal pressure. Now imagine suddenly forcing a massive extra gallon of water into that closed hose. The pressure inside the hose instantly skyrockets. This is exactly what happens to your arteries. Your morning blood pressure, which is already naturally elevated by your waking hormones, is suddenly pushed into a hypertensive crisis because of the extra fluid volume drawn in by the sodium. Your aging, stiffened heart muscle suddenly has to push against a massive wall of hydrostatic pressure. This sudden, acute strain is a primary trigger for morning ischemic strokes and the rupturing of weakened blood vessels in the brain. Consider a 69-year-old gentleman who loved his weekend breakfasts. Every Saturday and Sunday, he would fry up a large plate of bacon and sausage to enjoy with his eggs. He noticed that by mid-morning on weekends, he would get a severe, pounding headache right behind his eyes, and he would feel a strange, tight pressure in his chest. He dismissed it as just tension from reading the morning paper. During a routine checkup, he happened to mention these weekend headaches to his doctor. His doctor asked him to take his blood pressure at home, specifically on a Saturday morning after breakfast. His normal daytime pressure was 130/80, but 1 hour after his bacon and sausage breakfast, his pressure shot up to 175/110. He was putting himself into a hypertensive crisis every single weekend through acute sodium loading. The mistake seniors make is thinking that a little bit of salt is fine because they do not use the salt shaker. The physiological reality is that processed breakfast meats are industrially pumped full of sodium to preserve them, and consuming them is a direct, violent assault on your morning blood pressure. The takeaway is to aggressively audit the hidden sodium on your breakfast plate. If you have been diagnosed with high blood pressure, heart failure, or have a history of strokes, you must eliminate high-sodium processed meats from your morning routine entirely. Discuss safe, fresh protein alternatives with your cardiologist today. We are halfway through our list of morning cardiovascular dangers. The next two habits involve the liquids you consume, and they represent some of the most deeply ingrained and highly addictive routines in modern society. Please do not leave, because understanding the underlying cardiac mechanisms of your morning beverages could literally prevent a catastrophic arrhythmia today. Let us discuss the third critical danger, which is caffeine-induced sympathetic overdrive. This is the incredibly common habit of drinking a large, strong cup of coffee immediately upon waking up, often before eating any food or drinking any water. For millions of seniors, the coffee pot is the very first destination in the morning. They rely on that jolt of caffeine to clear the brain fog and start their day. But from a cardiological perspective, introducing high doses of caffeine into an aging cardiovascular system the exact moment it wakes up is like pouring gasoline on a smouldering fire. To understand why this is so dangerous, you have to understand the brilliant, natural alarm clock built into your brain. It is called the cortisol awakening response. When you open your eyes in the morning, your brain sends a signal to your adrenal glands, which sit right on top of your kidneys. The adrenal glands immediately dump a massive surge of cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline into your bloodstream. This chemical cocktail is designed to raise your blood pressure, increase your heart rate, and force you out of the sleep state into a state of alertness. Your heart is already working significantly harder in the first hour of waking than it did all night long. When you drink a cup of coffee immediately upon waking, the caffeine is rapidly absorbed into your bloodstream. Caffeine works by physically blocking the adenosine receptors in your brain, preventing you from feeling tired. But it also acts as a massive stimulant on the sympathetic nervous system. A study published in the American Journal of Hypertension demonstrated that when older adults consume caffeine during the peak of their natural cortisol awakening response, the two stimulants multiply each other. The caffeine forces the adrenal glands to dump even more adrenaline into the blood. This sympathetic overdrive violently constricts the blood vessels and causes the heart rate to race erratically. For a senior with stiff arteries or a history of atrial fibrillation, this extreme chemical stress can push the electrical pathways of the heart into absolute chaos, triggering a dangerous arrhythmia or a massive spike in systolic blood pressure. Imagine a 71-year-old retired mechanic. He was proud of the fact that he woke up at 5:30 every morning. His routine was ironclad. He would brew a large pot of dark roast coffee and drink 2 full mugs black, completely on an empty stomach, before he even thought about breakfast. Over time, he started noticing that his chest would feel fluttery and anxious around 7 in the morning. Sometimes his heart would race so fast he had to sit down and catch his breath. He assumed he was just developing anxiety in his old age. He wore a Holter monitor for his cardiologist, which recorded his heart's electrical rhythm for 24 hours. The data clearly showed that every morning at exactly 6:15, 15 minutes after his second cup of coffee, his heart was slipping into short, dangerous runs of supraventricular tachycardia. His natural morning adrenaline combined with the massive caffeine hit on an empty stomach was literally shocking his heart out of rhythm. The doctor ordered him to drink 16 ounces of water first, eat a solid breakfast, and wait at least 90 minutes before having a single cup of half-decaffeinated coffee. By simply delaying the caffeine until his natural cortisol spike had passed, his heart rhythm completely stabilized. The common mistake seniors make is treating coffee as a harmless comfort beverage. The physiological truth is that caffeine is a powerful central nervous system stimulant that aggressively multiplies the morning stress on your heart. The vital takeaway here is to never drink coffee the exact moment you wake up, and never drink it on an empty stomach. You must wait at least 90 minutes to allow your natural cortisol levels to peak and decline, and always buffer the caffeine by consuming food first. Discuss your caffeine tolerance with your doctor, especially if you have a history of irregular heartbeats. The fourth hidden danger of the morning routine is hemoconcentration and blood viscosity. This is the incredibly common mistake of eating a dry, heavy breakfast and drinking diuretic beverages like coffee or tea without properly hydrating with pure water first. This habit creates a terrifying physical condition inside your arteries, greatly increasing your risk of an ischemic stroke or a myocardial infarction. To grasp this concept, you have to think about what happens to your body over the course of an 8-hour night of sleep. While you are sleeping, you are obviously not drinking any fluids, but you are constantly losing water. You lose water through mild perspiration, through the natural filtration of your kidneys into your bladder, and most significantly, you lose massive amounts of water simply by breathing out warm, humidified air with every single breath. By the time you wake up in the morning, your body is in a state of severe acute dehydration. Because you have lost so much water, the physical volume of your blood plasma decreases. However, the number of red blood cells, white blood cells, and clotting platelets in your blood remains exactly the same. This means your blood becomes highly concentrated, thick, and sticky. This condition is clinically known as hemoconcentration, and it leads to an increase in blood viscosity. Your morning blood is less like fluid water and more like thick syrup. Research published in the European Heart Journal has identified morning blood viscosity as a primary reason why ischemic strokes peak in the early hours of the day. When your blood is thick and sticky, it moves sluggishly through the arteries. If you have any plaque buildup in your carotid arteries or your coronary arteries, the sticky, concentrated platelets are much more likely to aggregate, clump together, and form a deadly blood clot. Now, imagine taking this incredibly thick, viscous blood, and instead of diluting it with a large glass of water, you sit down and eat a heavy, dry breakfast of toast and eggs and wash it down with a cup of coffee. The coffee acts as a mild diuretic, signaling your kidneys to flush even more water out of your system. Furthermore, digesting the solid food requires your body to divert a massive amount of your already thick blood away from your brain and heart and down into your gastrointestinal tract. This process, called postprandial splanchnic pooling, drops the blood pressure to your brain while your blood is at its absolute thickest, creating the perfect environment for a catastrophic stroke. Consider a 76-year-old woman who always started her day with a piece of dry toast, a hard-boiled egg, and a small cup of black tea. She hated drinking plain water in the morning because it made her feel slightly nauseous. One morning, right after finishing her breakfast, she stood up from the table and suddenly felt a profound weakness in her left arm. The side of her face drooped, and her speech became slurred. Her husband immediately called an ambulance. She was suffering an ischemic stroke. At the hospital, her blood work revealed extreme hemoconcentration. Her hematocrit levels were dangerously high because she was profoundly dehydrated. Her lifelong habit of avoiding morning water had allowed her blood to become so thick that a clot easily formed in a narrowed artery in her brain while she was digesting her dry breakfast. She survived, but the neurological recovery was long and arduous. Her neurologist made it absolutely clear: the very first thing that must enter her body every single morning is 16 ounces of plain, warm water. The mistake seniors make is relying on thirst as an indicator of hydration. As you age, your natural thirst mechanism completely dulls. You can be severely dehydrated and not feel thirsty at all. The physiological reality is that your morning blood is thick and dangerous, and it must be mechanically diluted before you do anything else. The absolute most important takeaway here is to drink a large glass of water the moment your feet hit the floor, long before you eat a single bite of food or drink a drop of coffee. This simple act of rehydration rapidly expands your plasma volume, thins your blood, and dramatically reduces your morning stroke risk. Discuss proper hydration targets with your physician, especially if you have a history of blood clots or are on fluid-restricted diets for heart failure. The fifth and final morning danger on our list is perhaps the most counterintuitive because it involves not eating at all. It is the danger of chronobiological fasting arrhythmia, which is the massive cardiovascular risk associated with skipping breakfast entirely. In recent years, intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating have become incredibly trendy in the wellness and longevity communities. Many seniors, wanting to lose weight or improve their cellular health, have adopted the practice of skipping breakfast and waiting until noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon to consume their first meal. While this practice may have metabolic benefits for healthy 30-year-olds, imposing a prolonged fast deep into the active morning hours can be exceptionally destructive to a senior heart. To understand why skipping breakfast is dangerous, we have to look at the circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that regulates every organ in your body. Your heart, your liver, and your adrenal glands all operate on strict, genetically programmed schedules. When you wake up and begin to move around, your body demands energy. If you do not provide that energy through food, your body goes into a state of perceived starvation. To keep you functioning, your brain signals your liver to initiate a process called gluconeogenesis, breaking down stored glycogen into glucose. But more importantly, the prolonged fasting state forces your body to rely heavily on lipolysis, the breakdown of fat cells, to provide fuel. This rapid breakdown of fat floods your bloodstream with high concentrations of free fatty acids. According to a massive comprehensive study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, skipping breakfast is associated with a 27% higher risk of coronary heart disease. The researchers discovered that the high levels of free fatty acids circulating in the blood during a prolonged morning thus directly interfere with the electrical signaling of the heart. The free fatty acids irritate the sinoatrial node, the natural pacemaker of the heart, increasing the risk of ectopic beats and dangerous arrhythmias. Furthermore, the prolonged fast sustains the morning cortisol and adrenaline surge for hours. Your body is essentially running on stress hormones to keep you moving because you have not provided it with nutritional fuel. This chronic, low-grade sympathetic stress batters the arterial walls and keeps the blood pressure elevated all morning long. Think about a 67-year-old man who decided to try a 16-hour intermittent fasting protocol to lose a few pounds around his midsection. He stopped eating at 8 at night, and he refused to eat anything until noon the next day. He felt proud of his discipline, but he started noticing that during his morning walks at 9 o'clock, he felt incredibly lightheaded, his chest felt tight, and his heart would randomly skip beats, creating a terrifying thumping sensation in his throat. He went to his cardiologist, who ran a series of tests. The tests revealed that during his fasting window, his blood levels of free fatty acids were exceptionally high, and his heart was exhibiting premature ventricular contractions, a type of irregular heartbeat. The fasting was placing his older, slightly stiffened heart under immense chemical stress. The cardiologist advised him to abandon the extreme fasting window and eat a small, protein-rich breakfast within 2 hours of waking. Almost immediately, the lightheadedness vanished, and his heart rhythm stabilized completely. The mistake seniors make is adopting extreme dietary trends designed for young, resilient metabolisms without considering the fragility of an aging cardiovascular system. The truth is that your senior heart requires a steady, predictable supply of fuel to maintain its electrical stability. The vital takeaway is that while late-night snacking is terrible for your heart, skipping breakfast is equally dangerous. You must break the overnight fast and stabilize your stress hormones by consuming a balanced meal within the first 2 hours of waking up. Always discuss drastic dietary changes or fasting protocols with your physician before attempting them. Now that we have covered the profound microscopic mechanisms behind these 5 morning dangers, it is time to give you a clear, actionable plan to protect yourself and stabilize your cardiovascular system every single day. I call this the Heart Safe Morning Protocol. This is a 5-step daily checklist designed to guide you through the most dangerous hours of the day and ensure your heart is protected before you even leave your house. Step 1 is the hydration primer. Before you do anything else, before you look at your phone, before you make the bed, and absolutely before you turn on the coffee maker, you must drink 16 ounces of pure, room temperature water. This is non-negotiable. This immediately dilutes your thick morning blood, expands your plasma volume, and drastically reduces your risk of an ischemic stroke. Step 2 is the circadian timing rule. You must consume your breakfast within 2 hours of waking up. Do not push your body into a prolonged state of fasting stress. Providing fuel early signals your adrenal glands to turn off the cortisol alarm system, allowing your blood pressure to naturally settle down. Step 3 is the protein anchor. Your breakfast must contain at least 20 grams of high-quality protein. This could be 3 eggs, a large serving of plain Greek yogurt, or a protein supplement. The protein acts as an anchor, slowing down the digestion process and completely preventing the glycemic endothelial shock that destroys your arterial lining. Do not eat naked carbohydrates. Step 4 is the caffeine delay. Do not drink coffee the moment you wake up. Wait at least 90 minutes. Allow your natural cortisol awakening response to peak and begin to fall on its own. When you do drink your coffee, make sure you have already consumed your protein-rich breakfast to buffer the absorption and protect your heart from a sudden sympathetic overdrive. Step 5 is the sodium audit. You must ruthlessly eliminate high-sodium processed meats from your morning routine. Bacon, sausage, and ham are high-pressure hose triggers. Swap them for fresh, unsalted proteins to prevent the acute plasma expansion that causes morning hypertensive crises. We have covered a massive amount of crucial, complex medical information today. We discussed the terrifying mechanics of glycemic shock and why sugary breakfasts scratch your arteries. We looked at how acute sodium loading causes a high-pressure volume crisis in your vessels. We examined the dangerous interplay between caffeine and your morning stress hormones. We exposed the extreme stroke risk of thick, viscous blood and morning dehydration. And we broke down the chronobiological dangers of skipping breakfast entirely. What is your go-to breakfast every single morning? Do you struggle with high blood pressure, specifically in the early hours of the day? Tell me in the comments below. Please share your age, what you typically eat for your first meal, and whether you drink your coffee before or after you eat. I read these comments because your shared experiences help educate, validate, and protect our entire community of seniors who might be silently damaging their hearts with the exact same routine. Before we finish, I have a very important request. Please share this video with someone you care about. Email it to your spouse, send it to a friend over 60 who swears by their morning bacon, or share it with an adult child who helps navigate your nutritional choices. Sharing this information takes only 5 seconds, but it could help someone change a deadly daily habit and literally save a life tomorrow morning. If you found this deep dive into medical research valuable, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our weekly, research-backed heart health education designed specifically for seniors. Thank you for your time, thank you for your attention, and above all, take care of your heart. It is the only one you have got, and I will see you in the next video.